Hi there and welcome. My name's Kody Devlin, and in this video we're going to walk through some of the key highlights from Sage Intacct's release 2 of the year. This release seems to be more focused on operational finance improvements, so things like better purchasing controls, stronger accounts payable governance, improved multi-currency visibility, intelligent matching, and reducing manual admin all around. Today, I want to focus on what these updates actually mean day to day for finance teams, accounts payable teams, and finance leaders. So with that said, let's jump into key themes across the release. But just to all of the updates we're covering are drawn directly from the 2026 release 2 content of the year. So this won't be absolutely every release of this quarter. It's just the ones that we think will save time, reduce hassle, and help handle what the future brings. When you step back and look across the whole of 2026 release 2, there are really a few major themes running through the release. First is operational efficiency. This is really about reducing daily finance friction. Huge transformation projects, we're not re-architecting finance. Sage is just removing repetitive admin effort that finance teams deal with constantly. So things like manual invoice reviews, rechecking mismatches, switching between screens, handling remittance communications, or manually interpreting foreign currency activity. The second theme is finance controls. So honestly, this is where we've seen quite a bit of this released. Big emphasis on segregation of duties, audit visibility, approval routing, and reducing operational risk, particularly around refunds and purchasing workflows. And then we've got purchasing automation, so where we start seeing Sage Intacct AP automation with purchasing mature further, especially around AI-assisted matching, line-level review, exception handling, and approval routing logic. A lot of these enhancements are really about clarity, cleaner audit trails, cleaner reporting, cleaner reconciliation process. And honestly, those are the kind of updates we find that people value the most. First up, we've got enhancements around projects and grants. And this is one specifically around if you're using the projects module and you have access to use the project financial summaries. Operationally, this update is quite useful for organisations running projects internationally or managing projects with cross-border costs and reporting requirements. So what Sage Intacct now allows you to do is to switch currencies directly within the project summary financial view. So rather than exporting data, we go to our project record, we go to our project summary. Rather than manually recalculating the project balances or waiting for finance teams to prepare the foreign currency reporting, users can now instantly toggle between currencies within the project financial summary itself. So if I wanted to look at this in US dollars, I would change that view and it will take this from the Intacct daily rate. So where I think this becomes genuinely useful is for organisations that are maybe managing refurbishment across countries or grant-funded organisations reporting back to different stakeholders in different currencies. A project manager may want to understand the financial position in euros, for example, whilst finance still reports in GBP. That gives immediate visibility. Important to mention, this improves operational visibility. It's not a full replacement for consolidation accounting. Rather, what it does do really well is improve project level operational reporting and visibility. And the added drill down is also really valuable because it allows finance users to move quickly from summary variance to the supporting transaction detail. And that's where the operational value really sits. Now, this is one of the bigger operational stories in the release, which is intelligent three-way matching with accounts payable automation in purchasing. And for the right organisations, this is a very meaningful enhancement. So what Sage Intacct is doing is now introducing AI-assisted line-level matching between purchase orders, receivers, and purchase invoices. So instead of relying on purely document-level or header-level matching, the system can now intelligently assess the actual lines themselves. Operationally, this matters because this is where a lot of accounts payable friction does live, particularly across quantity fluctuations, price fluctuations. Historically, accounts payable teams have spent a lot of time manually reviewing these discrepancies. So now what Sage Intacct is doing is it surfaces the exceptions more intelligently. So instead of finance teams reviewing every single invoice manually, the system helps identify where the actual exceptions exist. That means accounts payable teams can focus on genuine problems rather than routine matching activity. And tolerance thresholds are important here too, because operationally, not every minor variance actually matters. You don't necessarily want accounts payable teams reviewing a tiny rounding difference across hundreds or thousands of invoices. I think this is a very strong enhancement for those businesses that have that controlled purchasing structure, clear receiving processes, and reasonably standardised accounts payable operations. Now, alongside that, there are some accounts payable enhancements. First is flexible line entry methods. During draft accounts payable invoice review, then you're using accounts payable automation. Supplier sent the email. It's been received into accounts payable automation at the entity or the top level. You can then look at that invoice in draft, and you have the ability to switch between summary level coding or detailed line level coding. And more importantly, they can do that during the review process itself. I've accessed this for accounts payable, my automated transactions. I have accounts payable purchase invoice. Now this is updated, you don't need to do anything for this. You can see here, you can do this during the review process. So operationally this matters because not every invoice needs the same treatment. Some genuinely might only need summary coding, others require granular line level analysis. And previously those structures have been more rigid. So this gives teams, especially your accounts payable teams, more flexibility during the actual review workflow. The second enhancement is in automated transactions. So again, might sound simple, but operationally reducing navigation matters. Your finance team won't want to jump between multiple processing areas just to upload and review documents. So creating a more unified accounts payable automation workflow reduces that friction and simplifies processing. So you can upload accounts payable purchase invoice documents to this list, and the system automatically creates the AP purchase invoice draft, and it displays it in the automated transactions list, which is here, and the accounts payable purchase invoice list. So if the system predicts a purchase transaction incorrectly, you can switch it to an accounts payable purchase invoice and choose whether to create transactions for the supplier as an AP purchase invoice. And honestly, across accounts payable teams, those workflow improvements do compound quickly over time. Next up, in accounts payable, we have improved multi-currency payment visibility. And this is one of those enhancements where finance teams immediately understand the value once they see it. Historically, one of the biggest pain points in multi-currency and environments is tracing what currency the invoice was in, what currency the bank was in, what ultimately hit the ledger, especially for treasury and reconciliation teams. Now, Sage Intacct separates those much more cleanly, so users can see bank currency, bank amount, transaction currency, transaction amount, base currency, and base amount. Operationally, this creates a far cleaner audit trail, and if you've ever worked with international suppliers or cross-border payment environments, you'll know how messy this can be, particularly if you've got different currencies or you're reviewing foreign currency movements. So this enhancement is really about visibility and clarity, and is being put in place to support future enhancements. Not flashy functionality, but cleaner operational finance. Alongside that, we do also have some improved remittance support for our bank file payments, and this is genuinely useful for multi-entity organisations. You can now configure dedicated remittance templates for bank file and ACH payments separately from check remittance if you're using it. So you can also apply entity-specific branding and logos. Again, very valuable operationally, especially for shared finance environments processing high volumes of supply payments across entities. Now, next up, we are in accounts receivable, and operationally this new update makes a lot of sense, and it's customer refunds through accounts payable. So what Sage Intacct now allows you to do is create customer refunds within accounts receivable, which then automatically generates a linked accounts payable invoice for payment processing. So effectively the workflow becomes accounts receivable creates the refund, accounts payable receives the payable, accounts payable processes the payment, and the full audit trail is maintained end to end. Historically, refund workflows have been can be quite risky operationally if the same teams initiate and pay refunds, and the reason this matters is because of segregation of duties. Yet now, this update separates those responsibilities clearly. Accounts receivable manages a refund request, accounts payable controls the disbursement process. that is a much stronger governance structure. And because the workflow remains fully linked, finance teams retain visibility across the original refund, the accounts payable invoice, and the resulting payment. I think this is particularly strong for sort of SaaS subscriptions, customer overpayments, that operational finance environment where audit scrutiny matters. Auditors are going to like this enhancement, and finance teams are going to like this enhancement. And operationally, it creates a much cleaner, more governed refund process. Next, we have an enhancement within order entry. And this idea came from you, so our Sage Intacct users, our Sage Intacct base, around individual charges and invoice runs for billing groups. So historically, billing groups have worked well for standard recurring billing structures, but handling customer level exceptions or one-off adjustments often introduced additional manual work. So that could mean offline tracking, manual invoice amendments, separate one-off invoices, or even operational workflows outside of the standard billing workflow or invoicing workflow. With this new release, Sage Intacct now introduces individual charges directly within the billing group. So what this means operationally is that organisations can now create customer-specific charges that only apply to a particular customer during billing group invoice generation. So an example maybe is if your customer has a one-off support fee, or maybe a contract-specific uplift, or bespoke recurring charge, or a temporary adjustment. That can now sit directly inside a billing group structure itself without disrupting the broader recurring billing process. And one of the nice improvements here is how those charges are actually managed. Individual charges can now be added direct from the customer record, from the billing group itself, or from the individual dedicated charges list. This workflow is cleaner operationally because charge entry now happens in line within a grid rather than operating separate entries pages. From a usability perspective, invoicing and billing administration becomes much faster and significantly less fragmented. And another strong operational improvement is the new invoice runs list. This gives organisations a centralised operational view with drill down access into both run level and invoice level detail. And what this will do is it's one of the more useful visibility improvements in the update because it gives finance teams much clearer operational insight into what has billed, what hasn't billed, which invoice runs completely successfully, where troubleshooting may be required. And if we just go to our customer records, we can also see that these have been enhanced with a new billing or invoicing groups tab. What this will do is give users direct visibility into which billing groups customer belongs to and which individual charges are associated with that customer. Operationally, this is particularly useful for your subscription billing environment. You've got managed services, hospitality retainers maybe, contract-based billing, or customer-specific recurring charging structures. There are also new schedule frequency options introduced, including semi-monthly and end-of-month billing frequencies. And previous days frequency has been removed to better align billing schedules with common operational finance practices. And finally, from a navigation perspective, billing groups have now moved from the setup tab here, where it used to be, to the all tab within order entry, and it makes it more accessible operationally for day-to-day users. Overall, this enhancement is really focused on greater billing flexibility, reduced billing administration, cleaner recurring billing workflows, and significantly improved visibility into billing group activity. The next order entry enhancement focuses on email governance and security. Historically, sender and reply to email addresses within order entry communications relied more heavily on free text entry. And operationally, yes, that can create a few challenges, things like inconsistent sender addresses, incorrect reply to addresses, authentication issues, or communications being sent from addresses that don't align with internal governance policy. With this release, Sage Intacct now introduces approved sender and reply to allow lists. Typing email addresses into communications, organisations can now configure controlled, approved email selections directly within administration. Operationally, this creates significantly better governance and standardisation around customer-facing communications. Administrators can then define approved sender addresses, approved reply to addresses, and users will then select from those predefined options rather than entering free text values. This helps reduce configuration errors, communication inconsistencies, and operational security risks. Particularly useful for shared service environments, your multi-entity finance structure, or stricter IT governance models where outbound communications need tighter control. Another benefit of this as well is authentication and compliance alignment. Because communications are more tightly controlled, organisations can then align outbound messaging with internal domain governance, authentication policies, and standardised customer communication processes. Operationally, this is really about improving consistency and reducing risk. It acts as a governance and operational control enhancement designed to strengthen how transactional communication is managed inside order entry. And finally, we've got custom purchasing approvals. This is currently part of the early adopter programme. So what Sage Intacct is introducing here is a more flexible, rule-based approval logic for purchasing transactions. So this is for the AP automation, so your accounts payable automation in purchasing. This isn't live yet, it will be soon. What this means is organisations can define rules like if supplier uses or exceeds a certain threshold, if a certain currency is involved, route based on those conditions. Importantly, this supports and or logic combinations. So I think this is a very promising direction because approval flexibility is something customers do ask about constantly. And again, this is important. It is early adopter. Complexity will need assessment. And I think this shows the Sage Intacct is moving positively in that right direction operationally. And again, this does link to all of the accounts payable updates that we've just seen in the release. If you are interested in hearing any more about any of the new releases, please reach out to the team. We'll be happy to help. And thank you for watching.